When you have OCD, it is completely normal to want to get the right diagnosis and the right treatment. But what happens when thinking about your symptoms and whether they're improving or not, and thinking about whether treatment's working or not, and thinking about whether you'll ever stop worrying itself becomes obsessional and starts to interfere with treatment? Well, this is actually a really common OCD obsessional theme. It's called Meta OCD. And today we're going to talk about how to identify Meta OCD and how to deal with it. So if you guys are liking these videos, please like and subscribe, and let's get to it. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to OCD Space. I'm Mike Parker, and this is your place for all things OCD. So today we're going to talk about a very sneaky and insidious obsession. It's called Meta OCD. And this is when you're having doubts about your mental health in general, treatment in general, and it's really important to recognize because it can sneak into your OCD situation and you won't even realize it, and you won't even know it's part of your OCD. You're going to be thinking, oh, I've got contamination OCD or scrupulosity or relationship OCD or something like that. And you're not going to recognize, oh my gosh, I actually have developed Meta OCD, and that's maybe a bigger issue than the first issue I thought I had. So let's talk about what you can do with this kind of situation. Number one, you really want to recognize the specific doubts you are having, because Meta OCD can take a lot of forms, and you want to recognize what is it you are doubting about your situation. Some of the doubts that you might come across are, what if I don't have OCD? Maybe I have something else, or, you might start to doubt yourself. Like, maybe I just made this up. Maybe I'm just looking for sympathy or an excuse in life. Very typical OCD doubts. What if I have a bad or incurable case of OCD? My therapist is telling me this is treatable, but they've never seen the OCD like me. They've never seen someone who's as weak or prone to worry as me, whatever those doubts might be. What if I keep getting worse? What if this never goes away? What if I have to worry and doubt like this forever? What if this has turned into a different issue like depression or psychosis or bipolar or something like that? And, what if I never stop getting new obsessions? My therapist is telling me about this thing called obsessional doubt. Oh my gosh, that means I can doubt anything. Let me figure out what other obsessions, I'm going to get. Because as soon as I lose this one, I'll probably get another one. And that's my fate in life. Those are the kind of doubts you're going to want to recognize. So noticing what is it specifically you are doubting is going to be a really important part of that process. And then once I can identify the doubts, you want to identify what are the compulsions that I'm feeling the need to do in response to this doubt. I'm going to be doing a lot of checking and testing. And let's look at some of the different things that you might be checking. So you might be checking your anxiety levels. You might be checking for symptoms of depression. You might be checking your motivations. You might be checking your progress. So how am I feeling today compared to yesterday? How am I feeling this afternoon compared to this morning? You might be checking new obsessions and doubts and popping them into your mind just to see what happens. Is this something I could worry about? I've never worried about this before, but let me see if I really am capable of just worrying about anything. This is, a big test you're putting yourself through all the time. You might be checking or testing the things you're hearing about on videos like this, or things you're hearing from your therapist. Are these tips going to work for me? This, I just tried it and it didn't work. Oh no, more evidence that I'm just not anyone that'll ever be helped. So everything becomes a big opportunity just to check or test. And so that's the first piece of advice that I have, is recognize your doubts and recognize all these compulsions. Tip number 2 is you want to commit to ritual prevention. Now, I know on this channel, I talk a lot about obsessions. I talk a lot about the cognitive part of OCD. With Meta OCD, I'm a firm believer that you really want to get a handle on these checking compulsions and target them and commit to stopping them. Because what happens is when you're doing checking and testing, you're not learning. And learning is the most important thing in OCD treatment. You have to be open, curious, and willing to absorb new information, try out new ways of thinking, and put that into practice in your life. And when you're checking and testing, you're not in a learning space. And so you got to get yourself into that space. So one way to do that is give yourself a time limit. Where you're not gonna ask these questions. You're not gonna try to figure out if you have OCD or not. You're not gonna figure out whether treatment's working. If it's really hard to do that, set a goal of a week for yourself. I'm gonna do no thinking about this question at all during that week. Or, feel free to make it longer, 3 months, 1 month, whatever it might be. I'm going to not do any thinking about this. And then, if you're in therapy, then you can say, maybe after that period of time, me and the therapist can open that conversation back up, and I can figure out whether I have OCD again, or figure out whether treatment's working, or the current approach to therapy is working. But giving yourself that space of that freedom of not asking that question, and just giving yourself over to the treatment process and learning. I'm excited to announce that I have a training for mental health therapists wishing to learn inference-based cognitive behavioral therapy for OCD. If you're interested, check out my training website, ICBTtrainingonline.com, or click the link in the description. Tip number 3. Here's another way that you can really open yourself up and put yourself in a learning space. When you are going to a therapy appointment, before it starts, you want to ask yourself, what do I want to learn about OCD today? What do I want to learn about myself today? And this is a great tip, Meta OCD or not. It's really important to recognize when you're not in that learning space, because that's how treatment is most effective. Asking yourself that question, that's the goal. The goal of a therapy appointment is to learn something. And with OCD, it's often about yourself or about OCD, and then putting that into practice. So making sure you're getting yourself into that space with those 2 simple questions. A couple more tips here. Identify what you know for sure. And this is going back to the ICBT approach, recognizing you've received information and you are most likely doubting it. So what have professionals actually told you? Professionals in the know about OCD, what have they actually told you about treatment, about your obsession, about your symptoms? What have you heard on videos like this about OCD? I'm going to give you another piece of information, and this is another opportunity to try to trust this information, try not to doubt it. I have never seen a case of OCD that is not treatable, and I have seen very serious cases of OCD, and it is all treatable. There is help for everybody, and there is the ability for anyone with OCD, no matter how much you're worrying, no matter how many compulsions you're doing, opportunity to get better and take your life back from OCD. So that's one more piece of information to log as far as things you know. That's my experience as a therapist, having seen hundreds of people, that everybody can get better. So last piece of advice I'm going to give you, recognize that progress is not a straight line. You can't, say, this is what my progress is going to look like. Every single day, I'm going to feel a little lower anxiety. Every single day, the obsession's going to weaken. Every single day, I'm going to feel a little bit better than I did the last. That's really not how progress works. You may have an okay day today. You may have 2 or 3 bad days, and then you may have a great day, and then you may have an okay day after that, and another great day. But it's very unpredictable on a day-to-day basis. We're always looking for, over time, over long periods of time, I'm getting a little better. I'm getting a little more strength over my obsession. So anyway, guys, I hope this was helpful. Meta OCD, a huge, huge issue to identify when it's happening. And with these tips, I think you'll have a little bit of an upper hand on the issue and be ready to tackle it. So thanks for watching, everybody. And until next time, trust yourselves.